Hello and Merry Christmas.
Hooray.
It's Rewind Reviews. Welcome everyone. We're back. An extended period of absence, and I will explain because it's kind of my fault. Very quickly, for anyone wondering why I've been away for so long, we're going to do another series of this sort of October, November time when we finished the last series, and then we decided we were going to start a brand new podcast. That delayed the start of this one by quite a bit because we decided to get 10 weeks ahead on that podcast before releasing any of it. So, now we're not coming back till I think March for the main series of this.
I think so, but you got bonus, you got a Christmas special from now on every year. We've worked it all out. It's good stuff.
Yeah,
the four of you listening to this podcast are gonna really be rewarded for your loyalty.
So the main series will be back with our Joe's Apartment episode that we promised at the end of God knows when, like 6 years ago it seems now. Will be the 23rd of March, and we'll do another 11 episode series, and then we'll be back again. It'll be more consistent going forward. Basically, we're on like a pattern now where it's every sort of 10-20 weeks we come back to it. So then we'll have another series starting in like October next year. So there's at least 2 runs of this next year, so instead of just sort of the one. But to tide you over, we've decided to do some Christmas specials, because I really enjoyed doing the Christmas episodes last year, Chris. What did we do? We did Gremlins, and we did the Snowman.
Gremlins, the Snowman. And that was it, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think they were good fun. They were a good fun time. I like watching Christmas stuff. Unfortunately, I mean, I like it less watching it in fucking November, but we're recording these ahead of time to get them sort of locked down so we don't have to worry about recording them during the holidays. But
this choice in particular felt weird because obviously we're closer to Halloween.
Well, yeah, I almost thought that was kind of like worked out well. I'm worried about your choice because I think I know what you're going to choose for the next episode. So, but we'll come to that. But for those who are aware, obviously we've put this out. Was it like the 17th of December? Next week, this exact same day, the 24th, Christmas Eve. We'll have one more episode, and it'll be Chris's choice. Today is my choice, and I've selected Nightmare Before Christmas. Now, I love this film dearly. I'll talk about my little my history with it in a minute. But I was kind of curious as to your exposure to this, because this film has had a weird history in that it came out, did okay, kind of a little bit got forgotten, and has built cult status over the years to the point where, you know, in the last sort of 10, 15 years, if you went into a Disney store, no matter what time of year, there's a whole shelf of Night Before Christmas stuff. The merch they sell based on this film is absurd. It's extensive. It's one of the most profitable things Disney have in terms of merchandise. It's crazy how well this stuff still sells. And it seems to have a special place in a lot of people's hearts. And I think there is an element of that sort of... it seems to have appealed to a lot of like misfit goth kids back in my high school days. So it's gained this weird cult status. So it's got to have been within your sphere of. There's no way you've this isn't going to be like a quick change situation where you're like, I don't know what this is until I sit down to watch it. You must have had some. If you've never seen it before, which I assume you haven't, you must have had some peripheral understanding of what this was, or did you just see was it just like the imagery was familiar but the actual content wasn't? I don't know. So I'm curious to know your history with it.
Yeah, exactly that. The imagery, you know, certainly that silhouette image on the hill, and Jack Skellington as a figure. The imagery was all very, very familiar to me, and I knew a lot of people that like went in hard on it, that really loved it. And I actually thought, because I knew the sort of, or thought I knew the skeleton of the way, no pun intended, of the plot. And at one point, I even said to you before, I was like, I might have seen it. I'm not 100% sure.
Yes,
and I
remember you saying that.
Watching it, I was like, nah, I haven't seen this. Like, I was fairly certain I haven't seen it. So yeah, exactly what you described. Incredibly familiar with the iconography, but hadn't actually ever sat down to watch it.
That's crazy. So, how quickly did you realize you'd never watch? Like, did you know you didn't go because you weren't sure going in if you'd seen it before? There was a reference to like you watching it with a friend from back, from back in like uni, but you think that was a different film? Maybe you got mixed up.
Yeah, you don't have. It was an ex-girlfriend. You don't have to hide that. Don't worry. Yeah.
Well, I just because you hadn't mentioned it, I didn't then want to mention it. Like if you had said ex-girlfriend at the so there was you were convinced or not convinced, you had an idea that you might have watched it with an ex-girlfriend, and now
I was sure I had because I think she was a big fan. And
yeah, having met and known her, that tracks. Like the sort of people I know that become very passionate about this film, she sort of does fit into that demographic, which is really not. I don't mean to be dismissive of a person. Obviously, she is a person with her own unique taste, but she does very thoroughly fit into a demographic with that as well. So
she was a big Tim Burton fan and stuff, and I believe we watched Caroline, the thing about
Coraline,
the girl
yes,
with the buttons, and I believe, in fact, you gave us the movie. I think we were living together at the time.
I love Coraline. Coraline is another sort of spooky stop motion film, but it's not a Tim Burton one. That one, I think that one's Neil Gaiman.
Oh, but did that come out then? When did that come out in that period? That film?
Yeah, I think. Well, I think it came out on like home video, DVD, but in that period, I think we missed it in the cinema. I think it got sort of shared around amongst our friends once it hit video, like once it hit DVD. I think that's how we sort of ended up seeing it because I don't think I saw that one in the cinema. Coraline. I was excited for it, but I think I just missed it. And then it came back around. But the true sort of like Tim Burton-y sort of stop motion not sequel, but like follow up to this is Corpse Bride. Which is a film I saw first day in the cinema because of my love of Nightmare.
Maybe I've seen that then. But anyway, I remember thinking maybe I have seen it. Maybe that was just Coraline. Who knows? Maybe I've seen Corpse Bride. I'm not sure. I know I've seen Edward Scissorhands, but anyway, which obviously is not stop motion. But so obviously it starts, and This Is Halloween. I was still like, maybe I have because that's quite a known song, and I've heard that song, and I think I've seen like there's a local theatre group to me that will often take songs from different musicals and form a show out of them. And I think like I've seen This Is Halloween performed in that sense.
That's
or maybe
funny
because
you've mentioned them before on this podcast in relation to Little Shop of Horrors. Yeah, okay, Skid Row.
So or things like like performance evenings at schools and and stuff like that. So I'm like maybe specifically my own schools. I don't just make a habit of going to all the school production evenings. Like the
he's lying. He's lying. He does. It's a burden. There are a lot of schools in his district, and let me tell you, it keeps him very fucking busy.
Time watching Year 6 productions of Grease. They're
like, which one of these kids is yours? You're like, none of them.
None of them. I just enjoy the music.
Just here for the show. Just here for the art. God. Can't a guy come and watch these shows? Ugh. You know how to get these tickets on eBay? They were super expensive. No, I had to get them through StubHub. I paid twice the price you did.
Imagine that, a Year 6 production of Grease on StubHub. Anyway. I don't think I've ever used StubHub. Is it like a secondary ticket selling site then?
I think so, yeah. I assume that's what it is. To be honest with you, Chris, I just like saying it. StubHub.
Clever name.
It's good. StubHub, here we go, I've Googled it. Buy sports, concert and theatre tickets. Yes, it's a ticket reseller.
Although the stub is what's left, isn't it? When they take the ticket bit off. So
yeah, it's where you buy used cinema theatre tickets.
Yeah. You want to not be able to see that Year 6 production of Grease. Go to StubHub and get the stub.
Well, I've just clicked on it now, and the first thing that's come up is sports. We didn't find anything. Try different dates to look at because obviously nothing is happening right now.
Yeah, to be fair, that's not StubHub's fault.
No. It's just funny that the website just doesn't really seem to know how to deal with it. It's just got. There you go. Concerts. I can go see Sting. They've got tickets to go see Sting. Should we go see Sting?
They're still powering through. Pearl Jam have announced a show for like June next year. They're still.
Yeah, that's exactly when Sting is playing.
Yeah, they're still.
So now we know for sure that Pearl Jam and Sting aren't the same person.
If only this was Stephen University podcast, I'd be cracking out my Eddie from Pearl Jam impression, wouldn't I?
Yeah,
anyway, so
there are only 20.
Halloween. This is Halloween.
Halloween. Yeah. Anyway,
Halloween.
You could get You can get tickets to his shows in Germany. There's only 28 tickets left, though. Oh, man, I'm going to have to make a move on this. Wow, the tickets are like €200. Fuck that. I like Sting well enough,
if you're still looking for Christmas presents.
Sponsored by StubHub.
So, after This Is Halloween, when it continued,
yes.
I was like, no, I've definitely not seen this. So what you were a big you were did you because this is one of those films I'll say up top, and there's a hell of a lot of things to compliment, and I did really enjoy it. This is definitely one of those films. Occasionally with Rewind reviews, we watch films where we go, I would have loved this as a kid, or do you know what I mean? I'd have had a different relationship if I'd have seen this as a kid. I don't know if I would have like loved it, but I certainly was watching it going, I can really appreciate what this is, but I'm almost the wrong age to watch this movie.
Yeah. Maybe out of curiosity, did you feel that as strongly as you felt with was it Ghostbusters was the really famous example with you where, well, I say really famous amongst
No, I didn't feel it strongly with Ghostbusters because
Ghostbusters, I think was it Ghostbusters you literally just didn't like, and you were like, I think I would have if I was younger. Is that?
Yeah, Ghostbusters I was just like I just couldn't. Yeah, it didn't Ghostbusters is one. I think sometimes people mistake. Like, I would never say I didn't enjoy or appreciate Ghostbusters because I know that if I'd have seen it as a kid, I would have, but I didn't as an adult. I think sometimes people, when people go, it's too hyped or it's not that good, it's like sometimes you're seeing it at the wrong age.
I would agree with that.
But Ghostbusters is absolutely where I had that most. I didn't with this, but because the stop motion and the songs and the animation and its aesthetic are all so strong that you can't help but appreciate it. And I did enjoy it. But before we kind of go into that kind of stuff, what's your history?
So it's an interesting one because I didn't see it in the cinema. It's older. It's an older film than people imagine. It's 2000. No, 1993. It came out. And I definitely didn't see it in the cinema. Although I did get a chance to see it in the cinema a couple years back, 10 years ago now. They did a re-release in 3D, but I did get to see it on a big cinema screen, and that was a good time. Really enjoyed that. But my actual history with it is that I missed it in the cinema. I was too young, far too young. So 1994, it came out in the UK. I was born 87. I would have been, six or seven? So, like, too young, really. But I remember when it came out on video the next year, I was living in Ireland at the time, and there was an advert on TV, and I tell you now, I had no idea this movie existed. And I was sat watching TV in my room at night. I had a small... I think at this point I still had a black and white TV in my room. My grandparents had dug out an old black and white TV. I was living in Ireland. And like that. But I remember watching it, and I cannot find this video anywhere, so I don't even know if I'm making this up. But it would have been around 95 when it was coming out on VHS. They put out a trailer as a TV spot. Must have only been 20, 30 seconds long. And it was Jack Skellington talking to camera, explaining sort of the movie a little bit. I feel like it was like,
cool.
I'm Jack Skellington, and Nightmare Before Christmas is a movie that's available now, and then it ended. But I remember just my eyes just couldn't understand this stop motion visual, this character, this design, the voice. I was like, I was kind of creeped out by it also. I thought it was kind of scary. Like, I was, I would have only been like, 7 or 8. Like, so yeah, it tracked. But I was just like fascinated by it. Did not see it again for a couple of years. It never came up anywhere. I couldn't find it in the VHS rental place in Ireland. Could not dig this film out for the life of me. Couldn't quite remember what its name was because the advert passed so quickly, in the age of not being able to pause and rewind. So I was just lost. And then when we came back to England in 98, I helped with my nan. She worked at a video shop. And I helped out there weekends because I got to go home with sample videos that weren't released yet, and I got to see a lot of films that way. And there it was on the shelf, that skeleton man that had kind of creeped me out but blown my mind in equal measure. And yeah, I took it home. I cannot tell you how many times I watched that cassette tape. Like, it really did. It is a proper
in that one weekend, or did you steal it?
Yeah, no, in that one week, I took it for a weekend, and I literally I I just watched it and watched it and watched it and watched it because I just couldn't. The animation just was so special, so unique. Like I liked Wallace and Gromit as a kid. This is not Wallace. This is something different. And I don't think I understood exactly what it was I was, appreciating about it at the time. But I think, looking back on it, you look at Wallace and Gromit, and it's these sort of stagnant shots of sets where they're moving through them, right? But this has camera moves and like theme and it's dripping with like style and like tone from every frame, just visually. Like I could absolutely see how this captured the imagination of sort of 8-year-old. I would have been, I guess, by the time I saw it, I would have been like maybe 10 or 11. But young Dan,
prime age for who were you playing in the Year 7 production of Grease at the time? Year 6 production of Grease at the time.
I was Danny Zuko. No.
Nice. Of course you were. Danny Frederick Zuko.
I wouldn't have been Danny Zuko, let's be honest. I'd have been one of those idiots that he hangs out with. What's one of the shit ones that he hangs out with?
I don't know. I played Danny Zuko accidentally. But anyway, another story for another time.
I was going to say that. Oh, no. I kind of want to know.
Well, basically, they were looking for volunteers to, I think it was something dull, like, be on the school council. And she was asking for volunteers to be on the school council at the same time she was asking who wanted to play Danny Zuko in our school, like a house evening sketch of Grease. And I put my hand up for the school council, but put my hand up at the wrong time, and she thought I put my hand up for Danny Zuko. And therefore I ended up playing Danny Zuko. It wasn't good. I can't sing, Dan. That's a big flaw in the plan.
You definitely can't sing. I know this to be true.
No.
Wow.
But anyway, you nicked the video and you were rewatching it.
Yeah, so I just watched it. So like I don't think I remember, like, the only other film I can think of that I rented and watched it that many times in just that rental period of a day or two, other than a Goofy movie, which I did also do that with. So yeah, and from that point on, it was just a part of the fabric of my very like sort of pop culture like knowledge. And I almost felt, I remember like fucking oblivious dickhead Dan being quite grumpy that it sort of got adopted by that sort of outcast goth community. You know what I mean? Like that kind of bothered me when I was younger, much younger, when I was a teenager, because I was just like, it's my thing. You can't get your own thing. Like I love this movie.
There's a great line in the. Did you watch the Honest trailer?
No, I didn't actually. No, I should have. That would have been fun.
I watched it before we started recording, and there's a line in it where it's like, all these goth kids thinking that they're individuals for loving it, even though they all love the same thing.
yeah. That's
sums
truth
up
to
what
that.
you're talking about.
There's truth to that, and it's a real shame because it's like it was. Yeah, I got kind of protective of the film because I love the film for the film, and I know they did too. I don't, older and wiser. I know they just really connected to it, and that's fine, and that's nice that lots of people like this thing I liked. But like at the time, I was very grumpy about it. But yeah, so that's kind of my history with it. Like I and it just was. It's been a part of my sort of like film diet ever since. Like I still crack it out every couple of years and watch it without question. It is a staple, and even with that sort of the connotations that come with it now in terms of the kind of people that generally tend to love it, I don't care. It's really good. So yeah, it's a bit. Yeah,
I also don't think having you could say that exact same sentence about Star Wars, and I wouldn't think it was fair to assume all nerds loved Star Wars. So I don't think it's fair to assume all goths love Nightmare.
Exactly. No, 100%. But like I said, younger Dan, stupider, wrong in this case. So yeah, I'm
bitter
very
that he didn't get Danny Zuko.
Yeah, but that is kind of like where I'm at with it. Is just like I was wrong, very wrong about that. But it is a part of my relationship to the film, though, because that kind of for a few years, not put me off it, but definitely made it feel like, god damn it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I've fallen into this category of being like really into this film with this group of people that I don't necessarily associate with because of that exact problem of everyone dressing the same and saying they're individual, which was amusing to me, even back then.
I really want to analyze the film, but I've also created an entire scenario in my head where you fail to get the part of Danny Zuko in the school production of Grease, and it turns you into this bitter goth. And in rehearsals, they're like, summer loving, and you're in the back just being like, this is Halloween. They're like, Dan, that's the wrong wrong song. And you're like, it's the better song. I may not have been Danny, but I can be Jack. Like, and like you come to rehearsals with like the skeleton mask, and they're like, fucking hell, Dan, like, no. And they're like, summer days drifted away. This is Halloween. No, Dan. Fucking hell.
What's this? And they're like, Dan, stop it.
Yeah.
No, I would definitely have been the character. I've just looked it up. I'd have definitely been the character Putsy if I was in Greece.
I don't even know who that is, but
no, I don't either. But I mean, that name says it all, doesn't it? Putsy. That's me. I'm Putsy. Oh, Kaniki. I could have been a Kaniki.
Sorry, don't forget, Dan. Don't forget that I only like 2 years ago acted in a production of A Christmas Carol and played Fat Man number 2. Like, I wasn't even... No, Portly Gentleman number 2. I wasn't even the first chubby man. Like, don't worry about it.
We have been very distracted. Let's talk about the film in more detail because we are getting way off track. I'm having a good time, but like it's occurring to me that
let's go head first. Because speaking of the honest trailer, I watched the film and thought something, and then was like, "Is it me? Have I missed something? Am I wrong to think this?" And then the honest trailer made the same point. So let's go head first into a controversial. Is this a flaw? Is this a questionable thing? Before we get into the awesome loving. Well, there's two things it really pointed out that I connected to. One that I already thought, and one that I hadn't quite clocked, which was they were like, directed by Tim Burton. No, okay. Music and lyrics by Tim Burton. Nope.
Yes.
Design by Tim Burton. No. And then they're like, what did Tim Burton do? Like, so that's quite funny.
Yeah.
But
I can talk you through that later. We got that in the trip because we'll come to Tim Burton's involvement.
Yeah, Tim Burton's hands are all over this. Like, he clearly kind of like show ran the production as opposed to doing a particular kind of role.
Yes, that's a good way to describe it.
The other one was, you really do buy that Sally loves Jack.
Yes. I've got this in my notes, I think. I've not watched the honest trailer, but I think you're about to bring up the thing.
Yeah, and I definitely thought this watching the film. I mean, Jack basically ignores Sally, and then at the end she saves Santa, and he's like, yeah, okay, I'll be with you forever.
I mean, it's amazing their relationship functions at all on screen because they barely interact the whole movie.
Yeah, and the thing is, I've heard people describe this film before as a love story, and I'm like,
I don't agree with that, but yeah,
I finished watching it, and I'm like, I'm not sure it is a love story. Like,
no, it's an unrequited love story, maybe.
Yeah, definitely, and the Sally to Jack of it all, and arguably Sally in some ways a more layered character than Jack. Like, yes. I think Sally's definitely one of the best things about the film.
Agreed.
And her feelings for Jack are exceptionally clear. Although even then I'd dispute, like you say, unrequited love, and maybe even like unrequited love for the wrong reasons. Does she love him, or does she see a way out? And and that's tragic and beautiful. Like, I think that's wonderful. Yeah. That's not a criticism. But yeah, Jack makes quite the turn, because at one point in one of the songs, she describes him as a friend, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. They're not going down the love route, they're just friends, and by the end of the movie, they'll be friends. And then the end of the movie hits, and they end up as, like, the inclination is definitely a couple, they kiss and stuff, and I was like, I'm not really sure that's embedded into the whole thing.
Yeah, and what's frustrating about that is it would be so easily fixed with just one change, I think. Mm-hmm. Include Sally in Poor Jack. When Jack starts reflecting on his choices, because it's all gone horribly wrong, and Christmas, he's ruined Christmas. We've not recapped the film very quickly. Not that anyone really needs this, but just to clarify, Night Before Christmas is a film where all the different holidays have their own little land that they live in, and Jack's very tired and fed up of being in the same routine of doing Halloween every year, and he stumbles across Christmas and wants it for himself. Jack then essentially becomes the antagonist for the film and kidnaps Santa Claus, hijacks Christmas, but because he's from Halloween Town, gets it completely wrong, and instead of spreading joy, spreads terror throughout the land until he is stopped by fucking missile, at which point he realizes the error of his ways, releases Santa, and he's like, "Can you fix this? Like, I fucked this up real bad. Can you fix it?" Santa's like, "Of course I fucking can. I'm Santa." And then Santa fixes it, and he ends it with Sally. So, but I think the fix for that relationship problem is when poor Jack is happening, which is him in the graveyard realizing how he got it so wrong, and realizing that having him also realize that he'd maybe not been seeing things that were right in front of his face. He was almost so fixated on how everything was the same. He didn't think of ways he could improve he could, look at the life he had and see the things that were good in it. Things like Sally, because when he's moaning about, I say moaning, that's not fair. In Jack's Lament, which is a song from earlier in the film where he's lamenting doing the same thing every year, and he's grown so tired and weary of it. I'm like, well, what would make that a lot? Like, if you had some good interpersonal relationships, that would be lovely. You're very isolated, Jack Skellington. So Sally's almost salvation in the way I see it for him in a lot of ways. And if he was to have realized that in that moment and go, oh, I missed the things that I had that were right in front of me, that would have, that could bring something to my life. Sally obviously cares deeply for me. And that's a relationship I should pursue. If he'd realised that in that moment, and realised that that he was missing something that was right in front of him, I think that would have made the ending feel a lot better. I think in terms of
I think that's a great idea. Yeah. So it's
a simple
maybe
change.
He's thinking, oh, there's some lyric reference, and we see her face appear in his mind's eye or something. Yeah, that's nice.
Something. Yeah, absolutely. Anything like that would have really fixed it. Because in that moment, when he's reflecting on the bad choices he's made, one of them being, hey, you ignored this person, when there were other ways you could have that could have helped you get out of your rut, and maybe that was accepting the relationships and the affection of the people around you, and extend that through romantic relationships, but also extend that to like just friendships, with the various people of the town. Which, by the way, Halloween Town is bonkers. I love almost all the characters that inhabit it. Like, they're insane. They're such weird designs. They're brilliant.
I was thinking, like, it must be because in a way, I suppose one of the shames, like. And obviously, I'm very aware that I could do this, but I won't. Like, it's
I refuse.
No, it's not refusal. It's just like I did think usually it's a very different experience when it's a film one person has seen loads and the other hasn't seen at all. But like by viewing this film as many times as you have, there must be so many things you're noticing because it's so imaginative. Like every frame has something. Like there's no need to like the science guy. There's no need for him to lift his head and scratch his brain at some point, but they do because the film is full of imagination and moments like that. So you must be seeing things that I just didn't see at all when watching this.
Tons. But it is visually dense. There's always a lot going on. It's I don't think there's anything that'll like blow your mind because it's all just stuff like that. You go, yeah, of course. That's like, that makes perfect sense. Like the little band member that pops out of the thing is Danny Elfman. So when the band are playing and there's the little tiny band member inside one of the drums, I think he's designed to look exactly like Danny Elfman, and that I didn't spot for a long time. Little details like that litter the film for sure. They've every frame is, but that's the thing is when you're sitting down and you're literally making every frame by hand, then you are going to think of stuff like that just to keep yourself entertained, aren't you? As an animator, like I do.
Yeah, I guess.
But you're right. But it's things like Finkelstein opening up his head and scratching his brain, which is just such a gross image, but such a good one.
There's so much and it is in a way and this is probably a discussion. Not for now, towards the end, or this might be hinted at in the triv, but in a way, I get why they've never made a sequel. I get why, and Tim Burton said, he wanted it to stand on its own, and he thought it would be a bit cheap to have, Jack discover St. Patrick's Day or any of the other holidays that are on the leaves, and I get that, but part of me aches to see Jack discover Thanksgiving World just because of what would they do with that? Do you know what I mean? What would they?
Yes.
What would the imaginative minds that made this film conjure up for all these other worlds. So I'm glad there wasn't a sequel, but part of me is like, just for the fun of it, like it would have been amazing.
Yeah, I think the worst part is I think if they did a sequel, they'd probably CGI it.
Oh, now, yeah, but if they maybe made a sequel like at the time or something.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'd be terrified if they announced a sequel now, because again, I think it would be a CGI fest, and it would probably be awful.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I think in terms of like things that work about this film for me, like I mean, it's the music, right? Like the music is the backbone of why this film is brilliant. It's incredible. Danny Elfman, like, really, it seems related to. So for those who don't know, Danny Elfman was in the band Oingo Boingo, and very much understood Jack's wish to do something different, because I guess he'd been touring with Oingo Boingo for so long, doing all the hits, as it were. That that was mean. That was really mean. I like Oingo Boingo.
God, don't give and take in the same sentence.
Yeah, I regret that. No, Oingo Boingo, great. But he was he really understood Jack, because he felt as Jack felt, doing the same thing every year, you know, with that and wanting to branch out. So it feels like this was like such a moment of expression for him, but also Danny Elfman might be the perfect human being to bring the music of this world alive, because he's got like Halloween vibes all over his music. His Batman music has Halloween vibes. You know what I mean? Like I mean, Danny Elfman is, if nothing else, is sort of got that tone down without even trying. So to see him tackle that, but then throw in these notes of Christmas, and then of his own, to add his own voice and his own passion to Jack's singing. And what's funny is, over the years, my favourite songs change. When I was a kid, I loved all the energetic ones. You know, give me This Is Halloween, or What's This? You know, like. But now it's like Sally's song and Poor Jack. Sally's song is fucking beautiful. Utterly heartbreaking. And I don't think I appreciated that as much as a kid. I was like, all right, slow song, you know.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's the same with the animation. You'd have appreciated that it looked awesome.
Yes.
But you wouldn't have appreciated, like, I literally spent the first 15 minutes of this film going, this can't be stop motion. Yeah. Because it's too good. And you kind of go, oh no, it is stop motion. And I think, like I just said, as a kid, you probably appreciate it looks awesome, but you don't appreciate why. And you're not sat there going, correct, God, this must have taken ages.
No, I mean, it certainly mesmerized me. Like I said, you know, that VHS, you know, got a lot of use that weekend. Didn't spend much time not in our player, you know. And that's part of why the magic of that film. It's not just the story and the characters, which are all incredible, or the imaginative stuff, or the funny jokes, or the great songs. Like that all is. That's what's so wonderful about this film, is like almost all elements of it kind of function really well, with a couple of like mild exceptions. Like I do agree with you on the love story completely. But yeah, so much of it works, and I think, but the visual does particularly, I think, make it feel more magical than if this was just filmed traditionally or animated like a Disney film at the time, which would have been hand drawn. You know, I don't think I'd have liked it as much. If I'm being honest,
it's not even just the fact that it's stop motion.
Texture.
So Dan and I both watched Prop Sculpture,
yes,
and which is a thing on Disney Plus where they look at props from movies, and in that it reveals that 80% of the movie is panning, tracking shots, and it's just like shit. So they didn't even just have to work out stop motion. They had to work out then how to move the camera with the stop motion. That's a fucking technical marvel that they achieved that.
Yes,
and I don't think you realise, like when I heard that stat, I thought about it and I was like, shit, I suppose 80% of it did have moving shots, but I didn't notice it at the time. Like,
because that's how they've made it feel cinematic. Like again, you look at like what, you know, what stop motion would have been at the time, like your Rankin Bass or your Wallace and Gromit or any of those things. Very stagnant shots, very like a play almost, because you want the characters to wander in and wander out of frame. You definitely don't want the fucking camera to move because that's this whole other thing you're animating. You're animating the camera at that point, because the camera has to move by a perfectly fixed amount every frame also. And how to do that is, I mean, that is a headache on top of a headache. That's a fucking brain aneurysm on top of a headache, is what that is. Even now, I marvel at the fact they tried to do that, like, let alone achieving it. Like, it's incredible. And you know what? Credit to Henry Selick, the director, who wanted it to feel cinematic, and it does. And you compare it to any other, like, even like the actual cinematic, stop motion films that have been released. A lot of Aardman stuff, particularly, I'm thinking of here. But like I suppose we could talk about Coraline and Corpse Bride both kind of apply this approach, to be fair. But other stuff that have come out since, like the Aardman stuff, all doesn't nowhere near feel as cinematic as this. Even when they went to doing a Wallace and Gromit movie, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, whatever it was called, none of it feels as cinematic as this does. Not at all.
No, not at all. No.
And that's not even coming to the script, which is tight and brisk. And this movie is what, like an hour and 10 minutes, hour and 20 minutes? It's nothing.
We had to pause for some reason during like the Santa battle at the end. And I was like, this film's only got 11 minutes left, and some of that is credits? Like, how is this wrapping all of this up? But it still feels neat. It does it. Like, and I think they use a lot of Christmas whimsy in a way, like, and beautifully so. This isn't a criticism. Things like Santa, it being like, "Oh, can you fix this?" "Yeah, I'm Santa." you just
so
go, "Yeah, no, Santa could fix it."
Yeah, and it's not even. Yeah, it's of course I can. I'm fucking Santa. Like, he might as well like drop a mic and have like a blaring like rap song like burst in like as he says that, and put some sunglasses on and then jump in his sleigh like, "See you later, bitches."
I tell you the other thing that I think's clever about it, that I suspect it might not get the credit for it deserves. You actually, and especially as a kid, like, this is most Christmas films, like, you know where Elf is going. Where, to some degree, Miracle on 34th Street is going. Like, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. To make them work, and that isn't a criticism, by the way, because that's what you want. That's what you go into.
Yeah, there's an expectation with a Christmas film, isn't there?
Yeah, and that's fine. Like, that's cool. Mm-hmm. Like the Christmas Chronicles that came out like the other year with the Kurt Russell. Like, and that's again what you want. It would be disappointing if that didn't happen. What I think is so good about this is, like, it's quite hard because he could achieve it. He could become Santa and experience the joy. He could cock it up and Santa and him fight. Do you know what I mean? There's a few different directions. It isn't too hard to predict where this film is going, and it moves along, like you said, at quite a rapid pace through those plot points as well. Like, I think it's for a script that also, this was from Pop Culture, for a script that only had one draft,
which is
pretty tight.
That broke my brain, Chris.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Looking into how this movie was made, though, the structure, thankfully, was already figured out for them, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but it's actually based on a Tim Burton poem.
Yeah, I think that comes up in Pop Culture.
Yeah, so he wrote a poem, which I actually read in prep for this. It's very good, actually. It's short. It's not short. It's long for a poem, but it's short considering it's the inspiration for a film, if that makes sense. The only characters that come over from the film that exist, so they don't widen it out to the full Halloween town, but it's just Jack, Zero, and Santa Claus. No Oogie Boogie, no Sally.
Yeah.
But it is just the story of Jack discovering Christmas, trying to steal it, fucking it up, and Santa being, like, come on, get your shit together, man. Do your Halloween shtick. I've got this down pat, and it's. By the way, I'm really enjoying this new version of Santa. This new Santa character I'm workshopping during this podcast. Who's just a real fucking bit of a cunt about everything, isn't he?
Just a bit of a cocky bastard.
He's a real cocky bastard. But yeah, it's really well done, and it invokes like those old, 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. A lot of those old sort of Christmas songs and poems, and it's amazing how the tone comes through in that poem, even. So the structure was there for them, and then they wrote the music. So they'd written all the songs, which meant the structure was definitely set in stone, because then they were already animating. It's crazy. They didn't have a script when they started animating this movie. I just want to make this clear. They started animating the bits with the songs because those were getting finalized, but they didn't know what went between them yet. So from a script writing perspective, it's worth noting that while it is incredible she did it in a first draft, a lot of the stuff that normally makes a writer have to draft and redraft is the structure. It's making sure the scenes have the right flow and stuff. And thankfully, the benefit she had when she sat down to write it, and I'm not taking anything away from her, it's incredible she wrote this in a draft. Absolutely astounding. But the explanation for how that is even physically possible is that a lot of the road had been built ahead of her with the song. She had to...
the work's done in the songs,
a lot of the groundwork had been laid for her to just link the songs together with story beats. That's not to say she didn't contribute some incredible things to it. I mean, I think that Prop Culture episode particularly, which, by the way, if you have Disney Plus, Prop Culture is really, really good. They've done episodes on a bunch of different shows and movies like Roger Rabbit and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and Mary Poppins, I think, was one of them. It's a wonderful little thing that they put together. I think it's a very passionately made show, considering that the tone of it initially feels quite corporate. But the guy who's making the show, the lead guy that's going around looking at these props and interviewing all these people, is very passionate about these movies, and you can tell, and that's why it works. But the episode on this, she talks about her contribution mostly being related to Sally. And the thing she's proudest of is fleshing out Sally. And she had the idea of one of my favorite moments in the entire film was her idea. And it's the moment Sally jumps out of the window and has to sew herself back together, because the metaphor of that on top of the visual and how you feel for Sally having to keep pulling herself together like that, it's a beautiful idea, and it's executed so well. But yeah, written one draft is still nuts, even with all of those reasons why that could be possible in place. It's a pretty remarkable story, how this film got made. The idea they were animating before they had a script is also pretty staggering. To be honest.
It's nuts. It's nuts. But it is and it's weird because I feel like we've not talked about the animation and the set enough, but actually we have talked about it for ages. It's just because there's not much more to say other than it's astounding.
Yeah, and you know what I really love about it as well is the texture, because Tim Burton's drawings, if you've ever seen Tim Burton's drawings just in general, but particularly his I had a book of poems by him years ago. I don't know if I've still got it. It might be around here somewhere. And each one came with a drawing, and I probably had Night Before Christmas in it, so maybe I had read it actually. But is that it there? Am I looking at it? 1 second. I have it. It's right here.
Hey.
1 second. Oh man, I bloody looked the poem up online and read it online this week. It's probably in here. But if you look at these drawings, they've got this real texture to them. Lots of lines for shading. They've got this really scrappy sort of look. Actually, Nightmare might not be in this one. The Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy and Other Stories. Wow. I don't even. I remember buying this, but I don't remember why I bought this. Is that weird? Maybe my love of Nightmare.
Well, especially if there's no reference to Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah, a little.
But basically, if you look at the art style, because he's done sketches with these. Oh look! This was given to me as a gift.
Oh, there we go.
2005. It was a birthday gift.
Who by Dan?
My friend Frankie, who you've met.
Yeah, I like Frankie.
Yeah, Frankie. We love Frankie. She came and saw us when we were performing in Edinburgh. Oh, bless her. So that explains it, because this is one of those great gifts that's just I would probably have not have bought this for myself, but it's wonderful. Looking at this artwork, it's so textured. It's hard to explain unless you're looking at it. But if anyone wants to just Google Tim Burton drawings, doodles, anything, and have a look at some of them, you'll see that he's got this very difficult style to create, because stop motion's normally about clean lines, very clear silhouettes, and very single color blocks, because it's easier to animate when you do it that way. But what they've done here in this film is given everything texture, with lots of line work, and then lots of like even looking at Spiral Hill, which is obviously one of the most amazing sets of this whole film, just absolutely stunning. But the way they've put all the lines and textures and divots into it, and then created shadow with them to make them drift further down, little details like that actually do a really good job mimicking this style that he draws in. And even Corpse Bride, which is actually directed by him, doesn't capture his art style the way Nightmare does, which is pretty amazing, if I'm being honest with you.
So not to, because obviously we're coming to Triv shortly, but so talk us through that then. Like, so is my theory right? Tim Burton essentially show ran the movie.
Yeah, I mean, so he wrote the poem, so the idea was his. He'd actually written it while he was a Disney animator, because he worked with Disney through like the early 80s before he, became Tim Burton and had sway enough to get things made. Basically, Jack, Zero, and Santa were the only characters that were made up, that were in that. And apparently the idea for it had come, he'd seen a Halloween merchandise display in a store getting taken down and replaced by a Christmas display, which is probably happening right now for us in real life, Chris, being early November. Yeah. And, well, probably not in the UK since we're all on lockdown, but that's a different story. The sort of juxtaposition between those things kind of inspired him. Like seeing the the horrors and the ghouls switched with all the sparkly, joy of Christmas is what inspired the poem. So then he becomes Tim Burton, in the sense of the public figure Tim Burton, director Tim Burton, and has a bit more sway. And that's when he starts looking at getting it made. Initially as a TV movie, like one of those old Rankin Bass Christmas specials, with like there was a Rudolph one and stuff, which are very famous. If you haven't seen those, they're actually quite fun to watch in a modern day idea. They don't really hold up, but they're still quite fun to watch because they're just such a fascinating part, particularly if you're not American. Because if you're American, you've already seen them. They air every Christmas. But if you're outside of America and you've never seen them because, well, you won't have. They weren't on TV as much over here. They are quite an interesting watch because you realise that you've absorbed so much of the Rankin Bass stuff through cultural osmosis. So many things reference them. Like, it's hard to avoid them. So then you see them and you go, oh, I've been seeing references to this all of my life and didn't always spot them. So he wanted to do it as like a 30-minute TV special, and they couldn't get that made. No one wanted to do that. They all thought it was too weird. And then, of course, the wonderful joy of Hollywood, which is just, we won't give you a small amount of money to make it as a TV movie. We will give you a feature film budget to do that thing that we thought was too weird for TV.
And I tell you, that's great, because I worry that if it had been a TV special, I worry the thing they would have cut is Sally. And I think, like I say, I really think Sally's the beating heart of this film. Like,
absolutely agree.
So the notion of her not being in it, because I think that would have affected it. I'm so glad it was a film.
She's the only voice of reason in that town. It's amazing, isn't it? Like, her character is so powerful. Yeah. She's the only one that's like, is this a good idea? And you feel like more people should be asking that question.
But she's also like, she's suffering from the same things that Jack is suffering from. But well, I was going to say she doesn't go down a path that's as destructive as Jack, but she is trying to poison. She is trying to poison someone pretty relentlessly. So I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess she's putting him to sleep rather than trying to kill him so she can escape. But yeah, it's pretty.
That's true.
There is a weird idea in this film that she's just like. Also, if I was Dr. Finkelstein, I would no longer eat anything or drink anything Sally gave to me. It's like daily. She's knocking him out with deadly nightshade daily.
But she also, she doesn't seem to, go very far. How does she does she knock him out and then just explore different routes she could escape? I don't know, she, and I appreciate she's trapped and stuff, I'm not saying anything about that, but, she just doesn't seem to...
I think he would keep her locked inside that building, his lab.
So it's then trying to break the lock or whatever with that time.
She knocks him out, and that's when she gets out. She goes out and wanders around the town. So the first time we see her...
How come does he then go out and find her? Or is there nowhere for her to go permanently? Until
well, so the
end
first
of
time, so the beginning of the movie, she's out and about, sneaking about, and she sees Jack singing his song, and that's when she realizes he kind of feels trapped too. And when she returns, and she has this really frank, and actually I noticed it more on this particular viewing. She has this really interesting conversation with Dr. Finkelstein where he's like, you know, you're just restless. You'll grow out of it. It's just a phase. And she's like, I feel cooped up. I just want to get out. And he's like, no, your place is here. I made you. And it's like a weirdly sweet father-daughter conversation, but also this insanely controlling. So you understand that basically she does go back because she has nowhere else to go. But there's also a point later in the movie where she escapes. And she's walking out the town, and then she dives behind something as he passes. So,
right, okay.
so when she is out and about, she is avoiding him.
Right.
Because she knows he'll bring her back home and trap her back in until she escapes.
Yeah, which is what he's doing at the beginning of the movie, isn't it? Where
exactly.
She gets ripped apart and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think the poisoning is more about like giving her the opportunity to escape each time. So the poisoning usually is what follows. What follows is normally her getting out into the open world again. Like the time she brings Jack that when he's trying to figure out how Christmas works. Which, by the way, one of my favorite jokes in the whole movie is when he tries to recreate the snowflake and he gets the piece of paper and he snips it and then he opens it out and it's a spider, like a perfect Halloween spider. So good. But during that sequence when he's trying to like science Christmas by like melting baubles in beakers and stuff, which again is one of my absolute favorite sequences from the whole fucking movie. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's great.
She brings him like, yeah, it's incredible, and she brings him like a basket of like because she knows he's not looking after himself. She knows he's obsessive. It's another way that the movie illustrates her understanding of Jack. Because she knows what he's doing. She's like, he's obsessing again. He's in his lab. I can see the lights from my place. He's losing his fucking mind. He's not looking after himself. He's probably not eaten or drunk anything in days. You know, I'm going to go. And it's actually quite sweet. And then she doesn't even hang around to get the credit, which is also one of the ways the movie tries to make you think that it's not necessarily that Jack's ignoring her, that maybe she's a little bit too nervous to be honest with Jack about how she feels, because she gives him the meal. She winches it up in a basket. He takes it, he looks, and it's like got like a bottle of wine and some food, and he goes to look back out to sort of thank her, and she's gone. Literally hiding behind a fence.
Well, she does that at the end as well. Like, she saves Santa. She saves the day, and then she sneaks away.
Yes.
And, you know, he follows her, which is, like, it is heartwarming. It is sweet at the end. Like, it is... The love story hits the right notes at the end, and so therefore it must be doing some of the work, you know, earlier in the film in moments like you're talking about. I quite like the notion that actually it's not just that he didn't see her, it's that he didn't get the opportunity to see her. So, you know, it's not as... I don't have... What was it that I bumped up against? Was it Groundhog Day? Where I was like, is it believable she would actually fall for him that hard in that day they spent?
Yeah.
I don't bump up against this. I don't think as much as that. So,
no.
Yeah.
Oh, you're my barometer for like what functions as a love story, because like you're so love stories are sort of so much your bread and butter in terms of what you enjoy from a thing, and like if you don't believe it, then it doesn't quite function.
Yeah, and I did get it. Like, you're my
little reader for that. Like, I just sort of bump you up against it, and if you like it, then it works. If you don't, then it doesn't. I trust.
And I questioned this. I questioned this more than didn't believe it. Like, I still got the feels at the end. I still got the feels. But that might be as well because of how well. Again,
the music does so much of the emoting.
Pardon, sorry, say that again.
The music does a lot of the emoting as well.
The music does a lot of the emoting, and not to bang on about the same point, but the Sally character is so good, so you are quite pleased that she's got a happy ending.
Yeah, I agree, 100% agreed. Yeah, yeah, so, and it's in the original intro and outro, Santa describes, the narrator who became Santa in later iterations describes going back years later and Jack having little skeleton kids. So.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so I like to think that's canon, even though it's not really.
Yeah. So what other points do you have, or what other triv? What we got? Give us
just
the
a few other things I wanted to bring up,
Yeah.
just because I thought they were really good. I still maintain that Poor Jack, the song in the graveyard where he realizes the power of that, Danny Elfman's performance particularly, when he realizes, and the way he goes from, soft, and I never wanted all this madness, never. But nobody really understood. Well, how could they? All that like big bolting, like just blaring, like full power voice down to very soft tones. Like it's incredible. Poor Jack remains, like, I think for me now the best, with maybe Sally's song as well. I've got to credit to Catherine O'Hara. I didn't know she could sing. Sally's song is beautiful. It's incredible. So it's one of those two. But that Poor Jack song where he's in the graveyard and he realizes, I never wanted any of this madness, never, but nobody really understood. Well, how could they? It's everything from the lyrics to the music to the power of it. And then just the moment when he turns is, why does nothing ever turn out like it should? Oh, God damn it, that song. So I just wanted to comment on that song specifically because it is just everything, lyrics, like that's beautiful. That's stand out to say the least.
Yeah, it's a great song.
I also... I want to talk about very briefly the horror of Jack's Christmas because the most upsetting part of this movie to me as a child, by far, is not the Halloween sequence at the beginning where they're all being Halloweeny, but the idea that Christmas could get Halloweened. The shots they've got in the montage where Jack is going around and giving people presents, thinking he's doing a great job, and he's giving them these monstrous things. The music's rising, and it's like kids being chased by their toys, these demonic toys. One kid's Christmas tree is being eaten by a giant fucking snake, and he just looks terrified in the corner. Like, the idea that, like, they could terrorize Christmas this way was so upsetting to me as a child. Because Christmas is sacred to children, and this film really hits on something, and that montage is really powerful. I think really well done.
It is.
You totally understand how much he ruined Christmas, and it doesn't.
But then
they don't hold back.
The incredible mixed emotions where he's shot down, and you know why, but you feel sorry for him, and like the graveyard scene is really powerful. Yeah.
And it's the moment that always gets me is when the very first kid he goes to see, and the kid's like, Santa? Because obviously it's Jack. And he's like, oh, hello, young man, there's a present. And then Jack goes away like, ho, ho, ho. And you're like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, bit of a weird Santa, but so far Santa. And then the kid's parents come down and they go, what did Santa bring you? And he turns around and he has a shrunken, dead, removed, like decapitated head. And it's just the most horrific thing. It's like, and the absolute, like, this distraught look on this poor kid's face. It's like, it's funny, but it's terrifying. Like, it's really well done. Like, I can't imagine a more effective version of that sequence. Like, it's just perfect. And it's the shots to the police officer as well, who keeps getting phone calls. Like, what, Santa giving you a snake that's that's eating your tree? What's this? Your kids are being chased by their toys? Like, it's really... And it's that news report. How depressing is that news report? And it seems like Christmas will be cancelled this year. And it's like, oh,
yeah,
so good. And just that whole sequence is wonderful. I think the horror of Christmas it's perfectly done.
Yeah, completely agree.
The other notes I made, obviously, why does Dr. Finkelstein eat anything Sally gives him? I do love how early in the movie they set up that the people of Halloween Town just don't understand Christmas. Like that song, the town meeting song, when he's trying to explain to them and they don't get it. And then he just leans into it and he's like, well, give them what they want. And then he sort of retells the version of what Santa Claus is, but makes him like a horror figure. The way that undertones the whole film, their just lack of understanding of Christmas is just a constant source of amusement. But also just a really sort of clever idea that they just missing the point of it altogether because they're not from there. They don't get that holiday. I thought that was just wonderfully done.
It's quite nicely done where like they don't, because again there's a version of this where they do come round, do understand, and sort of the towns begin to merge. But I think the more subtle, the snow starts to fall and they're amazed by the snow but appreciate it in like the right way is better.
Yes.
Is better than that sort of ham-fisted, breakdown.
We get it now.
Towns. Yeah.
Yeah, if there'd have been a moment, if it had been a film with a different tone, and it would have ended with "We understand Christmas now, we can do it," that would have been not good.
Yeah.
I do think, and this is from the poem, but I do think the idea of Zero lighting his way for the reindeer was really cool too.
Yeah.
I thought so. For those, he's got a dog called Zero with a little jack-o'-lantern nose that lights, and they end up doing the plot of the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer song in the movie, where there's too much fog because of Sally, but there's too much fog, and he can't take off. So Zero, his flying sort of dog, ends up lighting the way, which I just think is a wonderful little nod to.
Oh, I know I keep using the word, but the imagination in this film, is unrivaled.
Yeah, the concept, which is obviously from Burton, but the animation, the design, the music, the characters, everything has so much thought and care and imagination put into it. That's the thing, is it's not just imaginative on a script level, or it's not just imaginative on a design level. It's like everything is firing on like mega imagination cylinders. It's all just like totally amazingly thought out and like really well put together. It's pretty incredible. I do also, one last little note I wrote down, and I wanted to just bring it up because I just think it's such a funny, weird moment in the movie. Dr. Finkelstein, in the end, having made himself his perfect woman himself to be his nurse, a female version of him. That is one of the weirdest jokes in the whole movie.
Yeah, definitely.
I love it, but it's so fucking weird. We haven't even talked about essentially the villain. We should very quickly talk about Oogie Boogie.
Oh yeah, of course, he's a big part of this.
Yeah, we've not mentioned him at all. But before we get
one
to
of the best shots is when the coat is taken off to reveal the worms.
Incredible, right?
Oh god, so like creepy and like,
because you suspect it as the movie goes on that he might be, because bugs keep crawling out of his mouth and stuff. And you wonder, are there like a bunch of bugs in there? It crosses your mind, but seeing it, and also because they literally animated like thousands of individual bugs all moving and wiggling around. It's incredible. That's another thing where I'm just like, technically that's a marvel. I don't really understand how you even did that.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's a really grim image, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But he's a great villain. Like, he's quite pantomime, but I think that works for this because you've kind of got the non-pantomime villain in the Doctor. And then the pantomime villain in Oogie Boogie. And it absolutely works.
Did you won't have, I suppose if it was your first viewing, you won't have clocked this, but Oogie actually shows up in the opening song, briefly.
Oh, does he? Yeah, cool.
So there's a bit where it goes, "I am the shadow in the moon at night," and there's a silhouette on the moon. And it's Oogie. It's Oogie Boogie. And what's crazy is, like, it was a long time debated by fans if that is him or not. It's his design, but is that the intent? Is he also, like, because, he's kind of, they imply he's been banished from Halloween Town for being a bit extreme. So do they let him take part in the Halloween stuff and then banish him back off to his weird, casino lair? There was some supplemental material that came out through the Kingdom Hearts games where was it a short? I can't remember. They did another thing with the characters where he described himself as the shadow on the moon at night, which is the line that character says in the opening of the song. So we were under the impression that is him.
Yeah, cool.
And that he sort of gets foreshadowed in the movie before you see him. You only ever notice that, though, on second viewing, once you know what Oogie looks like.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
Which is another cool thing about that character, is they do a lot of really good work building him up without showing him.
But it's not a disappointment when you do then see him.
No. When Santa gets first thrown to him, you see his silhouette. You don't see him, and he's like laughing. I also am a big fan of Lock, Stock, and Barrel, the three little Halloween trick-or-treater kids. I like them a lot. They're good fun. Their song, Kidnap Mr. Sandy Claus, was another one that, as a kid, I was like, what a banger. I didn't say that, obviously, but like that was such a catchy little, like, it's an 8-year-old dad. What a banger! That's it's such an energetic song, though. That was one of my favourites when I was younger.
Yeah, I've got images now. You in the playground. Everyone else like Sandy, baby. That's not a banger. You want to hear a banger?
Kidnap Mr.
Kidnapping
Sandy
Santa
Claus.
Claus.
Do. I want to do it. Let's draw straws. Do. I know. This is the other thing about this film now. It's so funny is over the years I've watched it so many times. I now pretty much can sing along. And I noticed on Disney Plus they do actually have a sing along version of the movie you can watch if you go into the extras, which is a really neat feature. But I definitely don't need the lyrics. that is a problem. Jack says we should work together. Three of a kind, birds of a feather, now and forever. La 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 la. Anyway,
Yeah, we believe you, man. Like, don't worry. no one's like, prove it, Dan.
No, that's just me with the song in my head. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I just put the song in my head by starting singing it in the previous bit. But anyway, so I think the characters-wise as well, very quickly, I just want to give a shout out to the mayor character. He's quite fun. He doesn't do a lot, but he amuses me. I like his design, his switchy face stuff. So yeah, I think we've covered everything now.
Cool.
Yeah,
what about Triv?
So let's get to the Triv then. So
Give me the Triv.
We've already talked about how Tim Burton came up with it, which was the first part of the Triv. But there is, as it says here, there is some controversy over exactly who sort of has the right to call this story and film their own. It is a bit of a shame. I do feel bad for Henry Selick because people don't believe he directed the movie because it's called Tim Burton's Night Before Christmas, presumably as a marketing thing. So Tim Burton was a big name in the early 90s. If you can slap his name on it in some way, great. But then everyone thinks he directed it.
I mean, if you'd have asked me who directed The Nightmare Before Christmas before watching it, and like even I suppose after watching it, because I wasn't necessarily looking at the credits, I would have absolutely thought Tim Burton directed it.
Yeah, and it's a real shame because Henry Selick does such a stellar job here. It's kind of depressing to think that he's never going to get the full credit for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can imagine him going into meetings and they're being like, says here you directed Tim Burton's Night Before Christmas. Do you want to clarify what you mean by that? I directed the movie. Wow, Tim Burton directed the movie. What was your role? I can hear that conversation. Do you know what I mean? Like I can. Yeah. It's And obviously Tim Burton did get his chance to do one of these stop motion movies a little later point, which is Corpse Bride, and that is good. I enjoy Corpse Bride. It's got a similar vibe to this one. The songs aren't quite as good though, and the story isn't quite as imaginative, and the animation isn't. It's like all just slightly worse across all the board. Like it's still a good film, but I've only ever seen. I think I've seen it twice. I'd probably be up for watching it a third time, but probably not. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that good. So I think it's a shame because it really feels like Henry Selick brought some magic to this that Tim Burton wasn't able to when he took a crack at it.
I think I get the impression from the prop thing that he's Henry Selick. Did you say Selick? Sorry.
Yeah, Henry Selick.
Yeah, he was a big part of the camera movements and choosing to go in that direction.
And the texture as well. And not all of the designs. A lot of the designs were Tim's, obviously, but it's it's clear that he. I feel like Henry Selick was there every day with every frame and every set and every build and all the script stuff and overseeing everything. And Tim Burton it sounds like Tim Burton basically just showed up a couple times. In fact, actually, there's let's have a look. So Burton does reinforce that Selick directed the film and is often annoyed people don't remember him for that. Selick has reflected, it's as though Burton laid an egg and I sat on it and hatched it. He wasn't involved in a hands-on way, but his hand is in it. It was my job to make it look like a Tim Burton film, which is not so different from my own films. And then when asked about how much involvement Burton directly had, Selick responded, "I don't want to take away from Tim, but he was not in San Francisco when we made it. He came up 5 times over 2 years. He spent no more than 8 or 10 days in total."
Yeah, because if you look at Burton's list on Wikipedia, it's not in the main list, and then if you go to his full filmography, it's listed, but director no, producer yes, writer story. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's crazy. I honestly thought he directed it.
Yeah, I know. What's funny as well is he wanted to apparently originally, but he couldn't commit to a 2-year production because he was making Batman Returns and he was pre-production on Ed Wood, which, by the way, Ed Wood remains one of my favorite Tim Burton films. Maybe we'll come to that at some point on this podcast. But yeah, it is quite depressing really that he didn't get that Selick doesn't get the credit. This one I had to do a little bit of research, and by research I mean Googling, because I got two contradictory pieces of trivia. So I tried to dig down and get the truth. Piece of trivia one is that Chris Sarandon was cast as Jack Skellington's speaking voice because he matched Danny Elfman's singing voice, and they liked Danny Elfman's singing voice because they'd already, remember, they did the songs first. So I guess they became attached to Danny Elfman's performance, but Danny Elfman didn't want to do the speaking stuff, so they found someone who matched him. Now that piece of trivia makes a lot of sense to me. Thumbs up. But it says here, in a second piece of trivia, Danny Elfman signed on to provide Jack Skellington's singing voice because Chris Sarandon couldn't do the singing as well as they'd hoped when they cast him. So I've looked into it. That second one is bollocks. I don't know where that came from. I don't know who added that to the IMDb trivia. It's nonsense. Danny Elfman obviously wrote the music and was there first doing the singing voice for Jack. They liked what he was doing. They decided to stick with it and then cast the speaking voice as a match. And that's where Chris Sarandon comes in.
Yeah,
so
right.
It took me a little while to figure that out, though, because I had two contradictory pieces of trivia, which was fucking frustrating. So in an early version of this film, they had a they were going to lean more heavily into the poetic inspiration and have a narration that come in every now and then from the beginning and end, and I think once in the middle from Patrick Stewart. They also did actually nearly cast Vincent Price or James Earl Jones in that role, but they ended up casting Patrick Stewart, and he recorded his lines. And then when they actually went to, it was kind of like a poem, and it's the bit I referenced earlier because what happened was they decided to pare these lengthy monologues down to just a couple of lines, top and bottom, and then they decided it would make most sense if it was Santa telling the story. So they then had the lines re-recorded by the voice actor for Santa, which is Edward Ivory. But if you listen to the film's soundtrack that they put out, that has the fully realised Patrick Stewart versions of the intro and outro.
Oh, wow.
And they are very good. I mean, it's Patrick Stewart. I don't know. Would you expect anything different, really?
It does make a lot of sense, it being Santa, though.
Yeah, I understand the choice for the film narratively to make it Santa and make it match. It's a shame that Stewart's voice and work was lost to the annals of just the soundtrack rather than the full film. But yeah, I think for the better ultimately.
I agree.
Yeah. So unfortunately as well, weirdly, as I mentioned, they nearly even gave the narration job to Vincent Price. According to the director Henry Selick, Vincent Price was actually originally going to be Santa Claus. But after the death of his wife, his own health began to fail, and his voice performance was frail and weak. The tracks were deemed unusable, which led to much to Selick's regret, and they ended up having to recast the role. That is a real shame. I do like Vincent Price, and that would have been fun to hear him as Santa. But Santa does need to have a booming voice. It was sadly for the good of the film. And apparently the film premiered on the 9th of October, only about 16 days before Price actually died and passed away. It was it came out. The film actually came out in the US on full release like 4 days after Price passed away. So yeah, his declining health obviously caught up with him, which is a shame. I do love Vincent Price.
That's a massive shame. It does feel like a film that should have Vincent Price in. That's
yeah. I mean, yeah, 100%. He would have been very good at a contribution. It's just a shame the timings didn't work out. A very talented man. Now here's a good one. This one's one of my favorites. And if you go on Disney Plus and go to the extras, you can actually watch this scene play out. But the original intention, when Jack unraveled Oogie Boogie, was not for him to be made of bugs, but for him to actually be revealed as Dr. Finkelstein in disguise.
Oh, that's a cool notion.
Yeah, I'm glad they went the way they went.
Yeah, I am, because like there would have been the weirdness of her leg seducing him and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Which, by the way, that's such a clever idea. Can I just say that?
Yeah.
The way they use her being able to remove her limbs in this movie is super clever the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But apparently Tim Burton was infuriated by the idea, so much so he literally kicked a hole in a wall.
Wow, blimey!
For whatever reason that really upset him. He didn't like the idea of Finkelstein being Oogie Boogie.
Just a quick side note, it is raining so heavily outside. If anyone can hear that, I apologise. I don't think you will be able to, but it is proper coming down out there, and just in case you can, I
A
apologise.
little bit of Halloweeny sound effects for the
Yeah, exactly.
for the backdrop of this. Unrelated to the piece of trivia that Tim Burton was so infuriated by that idea, he kicked a hole into a wall. Tim Burton and Danny Elfman experienced some creative differences during this film, and for this reason, Burton chose Howard Shore to write the film score for Edward, his next film.
Oh wow.
Unrelated. Absolutely unrelated, I'm sure. It's not that Tim Burton might be a petulant man-child, but hey.
Hey.
Who knows?
Who's saying that, Dan? Not us.
Not us. I'll do a Donald Trump. That's what people are saying. I'm hearing it.
Yeah.
I'm divorcing myself from the responsibility for that statement, but that's what I'm hearing. Many people say it. Many fine people. The information is out there, Chris. Fake news.
I hate the way fake news has become like a term in its own. I hate like in many ways that's part of his legacy. Someone said it like not about politics, about they said it's fake news in a meeting the other day I was in, and I was like like I just hate that.
Yeah, it's awful.
Side note.
It's as awful as its creator. Anyway, no, nothing's as awful as its creator. Moving back to the movie. In the extended ending to the film, on the soundtrack, as I mentioned, Santa Claus returns to Halloween Town to visit Jack many years later and finds out he has 4 or 5 skeleton children. He asks Jack, I listened to it this morning, it's quite nice, he asks Jack, would he have done anything different? And Jack replies no. Not as simply as that, but no. That's lovely. Very nice.
That is nice.
Yeah, it's almost a shame that part didn't make it into the film, because I think that I understand paring down the intro and outro monologues, but that actually adds a lot to it, I think. But hey ho.
Yeah, I agree.
So getting onto the production, it's pretty incredible. It took around 100 people 3 years to complete the movie. For 1 second of film, up to 12 stop motion moves had to be made. So that's moving the character, taking the shot, moving the character, taking the shot 12 times for 1 second of footage. There were over 400 Jack heads with different expressions and mouth shapes. So, for those who don't know, there's a fight. It's nuts. It's the way they animate the mouth movements on these characters and the facial expressions is they have just lots of different versions of them, and they switch them out. So it's mouth open, mouth closed, mouth open, mouth closed, with different eye movements, and they move between them, which creates the impression of a moving face on a solid object. But yeah, 400 Jack heads, and the Jack figures that they use, the models for the body, were all made with this very easily detachable head connector that you could just take any head from any scene that they've previously done and just swap it on or off to create the expression they wanted for the moment. It's incredible, truly incredible. So apparently, according to the making of book, the most difficult shot to shoot in the entire film is the shot in which Jack reaches for the doorknob to Christmas Land, and it's all reflective, and you can see Jack reflected in it, and his expression shifts as he reaches out to touch it. Apparently, that was just very, very hard to achieve. It's hard in film to do things with reflections in general. So I guess that tracks, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
2 items were invented to facilitate the filming of this movie. One was a light alarm, which would warn the animators if any of the stage lights failed to come on or died. The reason this is important for anyone wondering, if one tiny light dies mid-production and they don't notice, the entire shot is gone. Days of work. Because if the lighting suddenly changes between one frame and the next, you'll notice. That's a big bit. So they made a system that specifically warns you when that happens, which is pretty incredible. The other was a system that enabled the puppeteers to seamlessly switch to a replacement puppet if a puppet broke during a shot. Now, there's no explanation of how that works here, which is a shame. I might do some digging into that, and maybe we'll tag that onto the next episode of this. I'll explain, because I wanted to look into that and I completely forgot to do more research on it. But apparently, either situation previously would have destroyed the entire shot. But I don't understand what system they could have for replacing a puppet if it broke during a shot.
Yeah, without track marks or something, which
Yeah,
you know,
or
they
like,
wouldn't
or
have
it
been
being in a
using for
slightly
stop
different
motion.
position and it looking jumpy
Yeah.
or something. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to Google that, and I'll try to remember to do that and come back to you guys for the next episode. So the film was actually originally going to be released under the Walt Disney Pictures banner, and we all know these days Disney do quite proudly claim it as a Disney film. But they sort of were playing it as a movie sort of made by the next generation of filmmakers, proud tradition of Disney. But as the theatrical release was approaching, they actually changed it to Touchstone Pictures, which is what Disney did with any film they thought was a bit more adult or a bit more just not on brand for Disney. They threw it to Touchstone Pictures, which is a subsidiary. So in the end, they put this out as Touchstone Pictures. Apparently, they found the film too dark to be kids. Michael Eisner, who was the CEO and chairman of Walt Disney at the time, found it just too dark for kids, and that's why they chose to move it. When it was re-released in... Oh, here you go. Here's the date of the 3D re-release, 2006. So that's when I finally got to see it in a cinema. October 2006. It was released October. They put it as a Halloween film, because that's my own question for you, Chris. I'll warn you now, and I'm going to ask you this when I finish the trailer. Is it a Halloween film or a Christmas film? We'll come back to that. When would you think is the ideal time to watch it? When it got re-released in 2006, then it finally had the Walt Disney Pictures banner on it. Interestingly, the only other film to have worked its way from Touchstone to official Disney is Roger Rabbit, which also was originally deemed too dark for kids and didn't quite feel on brand for Disney. Moved it to Touchstone. Years later, it's got Disney logos all over it. Apparently, in 2001, Disney were beginning to consider producing a sequel, presumably due to the sort of cult status it was gaining. But rather than using stop motion, Disney wanted to use computer animation. Tim Burton convinced Disney to drop the idea. He said, "I was always very protective of Nightmare, not to do sequels or things of that kind. Jack Visits Thanksgiving World or other kinds of things, just because I felt the movie had a purity to it and that people like that."
I think he's right. I think it wouldn't surprise me if at some point we see it as a TV show of the different worlds and Jack's just in the background in today's world. But yeah, I think it's a good call.
Yeah,
as much as I would love to see it, I think it's a good call.
I agree. Henry Selick and his team of animators began production in 1991 in San Francisco, and it was 120 workers utilizing 20 sound stages for filming. At the peak production, 20 individual stages were simultaneously being used for filming. And in total, there were 109,000 frames taken for the film.
Wow. But speaking of, you mentioned Henry Selick there. Something that audience listeners may well be shouting at us for not acknowledging, given how much we brought it up. He directed Coraline.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay.
Yeah. I've just seen. I clicked the link after looking at Burton's filmography. I clicked on his, and 2009 it came out, and he directed it. He was producer and writer on it as well.
Because that's based on a Neil Gaiman story, so I assume Neil Gaiman was also a writer on that.
Hold on, let me click down. Based on Coraline. No, written by Henry Selick, based on Coraline by Neil Gaiman.
So it was based on Neil Gaiman. So that's where the Neil Gaiman link came from. I'm not a crazy.
Oh yeah,
person.
There's definitely a Neil Gaiman link. He just didn't write the script of the film. It was
Gotcha.
In fact, according to Wikipedia, Selick's got sole credit on that.
Wow! Oh, good for him. Excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it's also worth knowing it's not like he vanished into the mists after doing Night Before Christmas. He then went straight on to James and the Giant Peach.
Yeah.
Which was another film I really enjoyed as a kid. Maybe not as much as Nightmare, but really fun, very well animated movie.
Yeah,
and Coraline is great too, but that's where the link comes from. That makes more sense because I knew Tim Burton had no link to Coraline, so I'm sort of in my head I'm thinking, well, I wonder why people link those two things. Is it just stop motion? But no, of course it's Selick.
Yeah, I just thought there's a chance a listener may be thinking that when we were talking earlier, so I thought
almost certainly.
Mention.
Yeah, absolutely. In the first few seconds after the film's title is shown, you can see there are actually 7 holiday doors. Going clockwise, would you like to hear them, Chris? I'm going to do it.
I looked them up out of intrigue, but yes, tell them to me.
Yeah, so a pumpkin for Halloween, a decorated Christmas tree for Christmas, a turkey for Thanksgiving, a brightly coloured egg for Easter, a green 4-leafed clover for St. Patrick's Day, a heart for Valentine's Day, and a sort of frame, blink and you'll miss it, red, white, and blue firework that can be seen for just a few seconds in the very first wide shot. That door is assumed to be for American Independence Day.
Or, as the Honest Trailer puts it, all the holidays except the Jewish ones.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a good It's a good Honest Trailer. Check it out.
I'm gonna watch it. I think after this, it didn't occur to me to watch that before I started to record this. But that's fine.
I must admit, I didn't, because I must have just seen it and not watched it. Because I thought they did. I thought they did like an entire Tim Burton filmography one, but maybe they haven't. And I thought Nightmare was just wrapped up in that, but no, it's got its own separate one.
Yeah, okay, I think it deserves it.
Oh definitely. Yeah, I'm just double checking. Yeah, there is. So there's. I suppose there would be two to watch. There is one specifically about Nightmare, and then there is every Tim Burton movie Honest Trailer as well.
I'd be curious to watch every Tim Burton movie. Actually.
Oh, they must make a joke in that then. There must be a joke in the every Tim Burton movie one where they're like, if anyone's wondering why we didn't do Nightmare, he didn't direct it. There must be that gag in there. That has to be, doesn't there?
Yeah.
Anyway.
So Jack rides across the sky under a Christmas Eve full moon. Now, between the end of World War II and the end of 1993, the year of the film's release, there were only 5 Christmas Eves with a full moon. I don't know who worked this out, but you're a fucking legend. Those years were 1950, 1958, 1969, 1977, and 1988. So the film probably took place, I would imagine, the 1988 one, which is the closest to the film's release.
The genius of the design of the sleigh being a coffin and stuff, like it's just so again little touches like that are just so good.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed this time around is because I always used to think, why are there so few reindeer? Like he has like how many reindeer is Santa supposed to have? Like 12, 11? Like he's got like a set number and it's like a lot.
Hundreds of those fuckers.
Yeah. Hundreds of those fuckers. But so this time round, I was like, why is it so few? And now I've realised now it's because when Jack shows Finkelstein the illustration of Santa and the reindeer, it is just the 3. So Finkelstein's just copied the illustration.
Oh, that's clever.
So, that is clever, isn't it? I thought that's quite subtle. I didn't. Yeah, I thought that was quite good.
That's very clever.
This is in here. Okay, this might actually give some more context to what I said earlier. So there has been a debate over whether or not the Shadow in the Moon character seen during This Is Halloween is the same character as Oogie Boogie, as they bear a striking resemblance to one another. They are the same design. However, in Villains Unleashed, I don't know what that is, but some sort of video game maybe, Oogie Boogie calls himself the Shadow on the Moon at Night, confirming the speculation, further emphasized by a similar reference in a 2015 theme park show called the Hocus Pocus Villain Spectacular. There you go. And if Oogie is indeed the Shadow on the Moon, then this seems to indicate that his banishment is lifted on occasion of Halloween in order for him to participate.
Fair play.
He also fights in the form of a shadow in The Night Before Christmas, Oogie's Revenge, which I think is a video game, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, I read that last night on the Wikipedia. It's a video game, I think.
There you go. Sally was originally supposed to have trouble walking. However, the filmmakers changed this because they thought she looked drunk. However, it is shown, of course, that Sally does walk a lot more stiffly than other characters. But apparently when they animated her having like a wobbly walk, it just made her look fucking wasted all the time. Which, makes sense to a certain part. If I was trapped in that tower with Dr. Finkelstein all the time, I'd be fucking drunk too. And then the final piece of trivia, and I only included this just for the joy, Jack says, "What's this?" 18 times.
Nice.
Just the sheer joy of, what's this? What's this? So there you go. So back to the question, Chris. The question, plaguing us all, I'm sure. Christmas movie or Halloween movie? When would you watch it? If you want to make this a yearly tradition, when you're watching it?
I probably won't do that, by the way. But I've got enough films I'm trying to ham into. I'm trying to make yearly traditions.
But if you were inclined to do that, when would you want to make that your? It's tough, isn't it?
I think it's tough because I think we actually. So for context, it's November the 14th. I think we've watched it at the perfect time because basically we watched it yesterday, and all the Christmas adverts have started to come out. So yesterday, John Lewis and Coca-Cola I think I have very mixed opinions on the John Lewis one this year, by the way. That's a big thing in the UK for listeners that are like, what? There's a store and they release a Christmas advert every year and it's a big thing.
The first one, one of the first ones was really good, got them famous, and they've all been shit since. Anyway.
What have you seen this year's?
Not yet, I don't care.
They try and do something different, and this is why I'm torn, because they do something different. It doesn't have a penguin or a dog. It doesn't have a hook. The hook is the aesthetic of the advert. And that's it. That's
not
different.
That it's super depressing.
No, it's not super depressing either. No. So cool. the Coca-Cola one feels more like a John Lewis advert than the John Lewis advert. But I think what's clever about it is, but I like the fact that it's different, but equally, I finished it going, what am I meant to connect with? Do you know what I mean? Like when it was the two dogs, I knew I was meant to connect to the two dogs. When it was the penguin, I knew I was meant to connect to the penguin. I was a little bit like, what am I latching onto here? Anyway.
Next week on Chris Reviews Christmas Adverts, we'll be taking a look at last year's John Lewis advert.
I can't remember what last year's was, can you?
No. They've all been crap since the...
I don't think they've all been crap. I agree with you. The best one is the little boy with the present, without doubt.
The please let me get what I want one. Is just if you haven't, look that up. That's an incredible advert. But the attempt to recapture that magic every year is pathetic. It's borderline insane that they keep trying to do the same thing.
But they haven't this year. Like I say, this year,
okay.
Don't get me wrong, it's got the same tones, but there's not. It's a little bit different. Yeah. Anyway, so I think this time is almost like the perfect time. Halloween is still sort of in mind.
As you say it's exactly what Tim Burton was inspired by. That moment after Halloween, when people are starting to switch to interesting Christmas, might actually be the perfect time to watch it. So maybe we have watched it at the exact right time.
I think this is the perfect time to watch. But if we have to get off the fence, Dan, I think it feels more Christmas than Halloween because of its message, its ultimate message.
Yes.
Its ultimate spirit, and it's, the whole film is about him running towards Christmas while he embraces Halloween at the end. I feel like it would be too... This is why, actually, this is the sentence I was trying to get to in my head and work out how to phrase. If you watched it at Halloween, it would feel too Christmassy, but I don't think if you watch it at Christmas, it feels too Halloweeny.
Very good. We've sold it. I'm sold. You've convinced me. I agree.
That's my
opinion. If you have to get off the fence, it's a Christmas film. But otherwise, your best time to watch it is probably early November.
Yeah, exactly now. But also, I think that's partly because, Christmas, I think quite rightly, I love Christmas. I don't think you'll ever be able to escape. Halloween, I don't know if it's just because it was lockdown, so obviously weren't really walking about and seeing decorations in the towns and the shops and stuff. But I would argue that because of the genius invention of the rule in the UK now that if you don't have a pumpkin up, no one trick or treats to you. Like, you only trick or treat the houses that have pumpkins up. These days, Halloween in the UK, it doesn't feel as, unless maybe you've got kids and you've got to dress them up. And I think lockdown affected this year because I don't think a lot of people were trick or treating anyway because, actively getting in front of strangers isn't on the top of anyone's list. I feel like Halloween...
Speak for yourself, Chris.
I don't know if Halloween...
I went trick-or-treating this year. I got an apple. I got a Mars bar.
People were like, were you the kid that fucked up Greece 10 years ago? You're like, yeah. Not 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Mike and Nicky was really confused by Christmas.
Do you agree with that, or do you think that's just this year? Halloween is actually still very much.
No. I think Halloween in the UK isn't like a thing like it was, and I think that is just it was already kind of people were already even when I was a kid. The idea of sending your kid around to strangers' houses to knock on the door and get sweets felt inherently bizarre.
We never did it. Never went trick or treating.
Didn't you? I did when I was a kid. I remember the year I felt too old to do it.
But ploughed through anyway.
Yeah, and the police stopped us.
Seriously?
Yeah, we were literally stood on a street corner in costumes, and the police were like, "What are you up to?" And then they got a close look, and they're like, "Anna, you know." We were like on the line age wise, like they were suspicious we were running around with eggs, I guess, like egging houses or whatever.
Right.
But like,
I think I occasionally got given chocolate by the direct neighbours, but no, we never dressed up and walked house to house. And it's weird actually because we never had a pet either, and I'm famously not a pet guy, and I'm also not, as you know, Dan, I'm not much for costumes and for fancy dress either. So there you go.
How our childhoods affect our our existences. Yeah, no, it's interesting because I do love Halloween as a holiday, and I do think like I have fond memories of going round to neighbours' houses. I mean, I lived in Ireland when we mostly were doing it, but like I think we did it once or twice while we were in the UK. And the real, I mean, the real shitness of the costumes was the highlight. Like when I think back, my costumes were awful. It was always just like a black bin bag and like a mask. Like it was, my mum would cut holes in a black bin bag. I put my arms through it and my head through it, and then I'd be wearing a black bin bag, but I'd have like a skeleton mask on. Like it's not really a costume, is it? Like it was the most minimal effort Halloweens my parents could get away with.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's fair. Cool.
So yeah. We've settled that. Good times.
Yeah. Good times. Good film. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really like it. It's a great film. I think it's a real classic for me.
Would recommend.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's if you haven't seen it, you maybe won't get as much out of it as maybe I did as a kid. You definitely won't watch it, a dozen times in a weekend, or whatever I did. But you'll definitely enjoy it. It's a really great film, and it's a really creative idea at its heart, and a very good execution, and lots of good music. So yeah, I'm a big fan. Disney, keep on fucking milking it to the grave. Why not? Why not have Jack Skellington mugs?
Yeah. It's right. But I think some films I know people moan about like Star Wars, but I'm sorry, some films are just built for merchandise, and this is one of them, and that's fine. Like, not as in they're not created to sell merchandise, but like they as products are easily translated into merchandise. Correct. And that's just the way it is sometimes. Like, that's cool.
I nearly bought a Jack Skellington head mug. It was his head, but it had a big hole in the top where you could put a tea.
Nice.
I didn't in the end. I don't know what... Oh, you know what put me off? It curves in. I don't like a cup that curves in at the top.
It's what do you mean? In what way did it curve in?
So, because it's his skull, the circle is going inward at the top, isn't it?
Oh, no, you don't want that.
So, you'd have to tip the cup a lot further to be able to sip the tea. And I don't...
That's not practical.
That's a surefire way for me to get tea down my front, is what that is.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, so Chris, put me out of my misery. So yesterday, Chris said something that made me think I know what this film is. And what really scares me about the choice, isn't this film. It's that if Chris chooses the film I think he's about to choose, I think we've committed Chris's choice for Christmas the next 4 years. Maybe, no, 3. Is it 3 or 4?
Well, 3. The problem is, Dan, I said that sentence to you, hung up, and went, shit. That statement applies to 2 films, and I still haven't really.
Wow!
Because there's more so to the Santa Claus. Sorry. I feel like I have to pick that now. I've said it.
That's what I was thinking you were going to pick. So.
Yeah, that is the film. That I'd say was my favourite Christmas film, and the film that I watched as a kid, and it is a film that Jess and I try and watch it in its 2 sequels every year. There is another film I loved as a kid and wanted to have wanted to make a thing, and I think we have watched it the last 2 years, and I want to make watching that every year a thing now as well. But I need to choose.
Feel free. Mate, there's no right or wrong answers. You may have already mentioned the Santa Claus, which is the answer I was expecting you to choose. But if you've got something else you want to pull out your backside because you're feeling like that, it's your call. This is the great thing about this podcast: is it's your choice. It is 100% Chris's choice.
When I said that sentence is more applicable to the Santa Claus. I wasn't thinking of the Santa Claus at the time. I'm going to keep Santa Claus in my back pocket because we will be doing next Christmas. We will be in the middle of, we've worked it out, and the Christmas episodes will be in the middle of a run. So it puts the pressure on you to work out whether you're going to choose the Santa Claus too, which you probably won't. And I feel like I do want to watch the Santa Claus in December, although technically we could watch this next film in December. So, and also, you've chosen a really great movie. I would argue that the movie I'm now going to choose instead of the Santa Claus is worse than the Santa Claus, which feels
because I loved the Santa Claus as a kid, but as I've grown older, I have some questions and problems, and they only exasperate as the movies go on. To be honest with you, particularly that third one is a tough watch.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, definitely, it's a slog. This, I would argue, there's more questions and problems with this film, and because you chose a film that was so I feel like because these are two bonus Christmas Rewind reviews. There's always two sides of the coin with Rewind reviews, and this film probably represents the other side of the coin more, although I love it. So, Dan, we will be watching Jingle All the Way.
Amazing. Was not expecting that, but very happy. I loved that film as a kid. I haven't watched it as an adult. I don't know if it works. I'll be very interested to see.
We had last Christmas, we had my mate Rich. If Ronnie's listening to this, shout out to Ronnie. So where Jess, Ronnie, and I think Steve was there as well, who's been on our other podcast, introduced our friend Rich to Christmas classics he hadn't seen. One was Jingle All the Way, one was Home Alone. I can't remember I think we did watch a third, but I can't remember. And with both Jingle All the Way and, unfortunately, as we've discussed on this before, Home Alone as an adult with an adult who has never seen it is hard to justify the magic the people that saw it as kids associate with that film. Like, because there's elements of it that just don't make, like you said, questions and thoughts. And with both of them, it was like, we went in so excited, and through watching them, we're like, oh man, these films have some issues. So I'm excited. I'm excited for you. I think Jingle All the Way is the right choice for this moment, and the Santa Claus will remain. Santa Claus is coming. Don't worry. I might bust Santa Claus out when it's not even Christmas. So yeah, I think it's got to be Jingle All the Way.
I think next year, if memory serves, the Christmas episodes. Looking at it, it looks like we got one on the 14th and one on the 21st in 2021. Theoretically, if the schedule keeps up.
Whose choice is the 14th? Or have you not got that written down?
14th looks like it's mine. 21st looks like it's yours.
Cool. Well, I might for the 7th pick the Santa Claus.
You dickhead. Right. So, oh god, are you going to try and force my hand so that I then have to pick the Santa Claus
I would
too?
understand if you. It's not Back to the Future, is it? Like you don't need to pick the second one. Like.
Just make you do it one by one, year after year.
Because I'm not even sure how good the discussion on the third one would be.
That movie's messed up. There's definitely a discussion to be had on the third Santa Claus movie.
Well, anyway, next week is a boy who wants a toy, and a man who is punching reindeers.
Oh, he punches a reindeer. I forgot about that.
It's those details, Dan, that you don't remember, and then you watch and are like, fucking hell.
Amazing. Oh, I'm so in. Yeah, no, that's incredible. He punches a reindeer, Chris.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah. That's good fun. That's a good choice. I loved that movie as a kid. I watched it a lot. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Perfect.
Yes, it's one of those films I very vividly remember watching. Like I can picture my surroundings when watching it. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So, come back in a week's time for that. These episodes, because I don't want to interrupt the flow of analysing Avatar going up early on Patreon, I won't be putting... And also, if we put these two podcasts up a week early, then they'll be early December. They're not very Christmassy time-wise. So, we're just going to release these on these dates. Like, it's not going to be the usual go to the Patreon right now to get Jingle All the Way a week early. Just come back next week and we'll have that for you. It'll be, I think we're going to put it out the 24th, so Christmas Eve, that should be available. I'm very excited.
Definitely.
It's good fun. Yeah. So thanks very much for listening, everyone. Oh, I'll tell you what else I tell you what we could do actually.
Hold on, wait. Is that perfect? Because hold on, I think I'm right in saying, yeah, Jingle All the Way is set on Christmas Eve.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. It's going out on the 24th. Yeah, that's too perfect to change, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you everyone for listening. We appreciate you very much, and we appreciate your patience with Rewind Reviews with this weird extended gap we've had between the previous series and the next one. But I promise, looking at the schedule like that we've sort of put together as a guide for when we're going to be getting back to these things. The next series starts in March. The series after that starts only like 20 weeks after that, back in October next year. So there's a good solid sort of run like that's going to be consistent going forward. So yeah, don't worry. We know this is an extraordinarily long gap for this podcast, but we promise that won't happen again. I don't want it to happen again. I have too much fun recording these.
Yeah, no, it's great fun.
Yeah. So everyone, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate you. Come back in a week's time for Jingle All the Way. But in the meantime, I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And that is all for this week's edition of Rewind Reviews.